It was May 2012 in Canada. The weather was warming, schools were wrapping up, and in Montreal, a city known for its culture and calm, something horrific was about to surface.
A human head found in a Montreal park this week belongs to Jun Lin, the Chinese university student, killed and dismembered in May, police said Wednesday.
Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge Jun Lin. He was a son, a student, a friend, and a human being who deserved so much better. I also want to apologise if I mispronounce any names throughout this video. I've done my best to handle this story with accuracy and respect. Jun Lin, also known as Justin, was born in Wuhan, China on December 30th, 1978. In 2010, he moved to Canada in search of a better life. He enrolled at Concordia University in Montreal, studying computer engineering. He also worked part-time at a convenience store to support himself. Friends described Jun as quiet, respectful, and focused, someone who was trying to build something new for himself in a country far from home. He had just moved into a new apartment in Griffintown in May of 2012. He was continuing his studies, making new connections, and navigating his own personal journey. Jun was gay, but hadn't come out to his family in China. He had previously been married to a woman, but the relationship ended. In Canada, he lived openly, though still under pressure from his family to eventually marry. After a recent breakup, Jun started using dating apps to meet people. One of those connections would change everything. The man Jun met that night went by many names. To some, he was Jimmy. To others, Angel. Online, he was sometimes Justin or even Vladimir Romanov, but his real name was Luka Magnotta. Born Eric Clinton Kirk Newman in Scarborough, Ontario, Luka grew up in a home that, by his own words, was anything but stable. His father was diagnosed with schizophrenia. His mother, he claimed, would lock him out of the house and once left their pet rabbits to freeze outside. After the divorce, Luka was raised by his grandmother. In his early adult life, Luka struggled with mental illness and money. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and received disability assistance. To supplement his income, he began working in the escort industry and modeling. He also appeared in a small number of explicit, low-budget films, though many in that industry said his work was minimal and largely overlooked. Over time, Luka tried to build a new identity. He changed his name, underwent cosmetic procedures, and began creating dozens of fake social media profiles. These accounts praised him, spread rumors, and pushed the image he wanted the world to see. He even planted a false story that he was dating a notorious Canadian killer. Police later debunked it, but the goal was clear. Luka wanted attention. Any kind of attention. And behind that obsession was a much darker path. In 2005, he was convicted of fraud after manipulating a woman with developmental challenges to take out credit cards, which he used for personal purchases. That same year, he began posting disturbing videos online. It started with animals. In one video, he suffocated kittens. In another, he let a python eat a live cat. The internet took notice. A group of amateur investigators tried to stop him, fearing what he might do next. Their warning, he's not going to stop, he's going to move on to people. They were right. The man Jun Lin met wasn't just a stranger online. He was someone who had spent years carefully building a mask, while slowly preparing to make his most horrifying move yet. May 24, 2012. Jun Lin was last seen entering Luka Magnotta's apartment building that night. Surveillance footage captured them both walking in. It was the last time Jun Lin was seen alive. Later that evening, his phone sent a final text, then silence. When Jun didn't show up for work the next day, his boss became concerned. Friends went to check on him. Days passed. By May 29th, he was officially reported missing. But something else had already started circulating online. On May 25th, an 11-minute video was uploaded to a shock website. The title, One Lunatic, One Ice Pick. It showed a restrained man, acts of extreme violence, and disturbing imagery involving body parts. The background music was True Faith by New Order. A movie poster hung on the wall. The video was sent in anonymously, but what the public didn't know at the time was that it was real, and the victim was Jun Lin. It wasn't long before horrifying clues began appearing in the real world. On May 29th, a package arrived at the headquarters of the Conservative Party of Canada. Inside was a severed human foot. Another package, this one addressed to the Liberal Party, contained a hand. Both were covered in blood and had a foul smell. One was marked with a red heart. The next day, a janitor in Montreal discovered a suitcase in a garbage pile behind an apartment complex. Inside was a torso. When police arrived, they found bloody clothes, human remains, and identification papers, all leading to one name, Luka Magnotta. Surveillance footage from the building showed Magnotta carrying out multiple garbage bags. Police linked him to the post office where the packages were sent. By the time authorities searched his apartment, he was already gone. What they found inside was chilling. Bloodstains in the tub, on the mattress, the refrigerator, a closet door marked with red ink. If you don't like the reflection, don't look in the mirror. I don't care. He had cleaned out the apartment, but not enough. Magnotta had fled the country using his real passport just hours after the killing, but the case was far from over. In total, 6 packages containing body parts were sent across Canada. One was addressed to an elementary school. Another included a poem. Roses are red, violets are blue. The police will need dental records to identify you. On June 13th, DNA confirmed the limbs belonged to Jun Lin, and on July 1st, his severed head was recovered from a park, following an anonymous tip. By this point, Magnotta was on the run across Europe, but his freedom wouldn't last long. The investigation was now in full swing. Canadian authorities issued an arrest warrant for Luka Magnotta, charging him with first-degree murder, committing an indignity to a body, distributing obscene material, and even harassing the Canadian Prime Minister. The case was no longer just national, it was global. On May 31st, 2012, Interpol issued a red notice for Magnotta. His name and photo were displayed on their homepage. He had officially become one of the most wanted men in the world. But Magnotta had a head start. He had already left Canada using his real passport, flying from Montreal to Paris just hours after the crime. French police quickly traced his phone to a hotel in the Bagnolet district, but by the time they arrived, he was gone. Inside the room, they found adult magazines, a bath bag, and a fake passport with the name Kirk Trammell, a likely nod to a character from Basic Instinct, a film he was reportedly obsessed with. He stayed with different people around Paris, moving constantly, blending in. One man even hosted him for 2 nights, completely unaware he was sheltering a fugitive. Then Magnotta boarded a bus heading to Berlin, Germany. But it wasn't careful planning that brought him down. It was ego. On June 4th, 2012, Magnotta walked into an internet cafe in Berlin. He sat down, opened a browser, and started reading news articles about himself. The cafe worker recognized him and quietly alerted police. Within minutes, German officers entered the cafe and arrested him. At first, he gave them fake names, but eventually he admitted who he was. His identity was confirmed by fingerprints. Magnotta appeared in a Berlin court the next day. He didn't fight extradition. 2 weeks later, on June 18th, Canadian officials flew to Germany. Magnotta was transported back to Montreal aboard a military aircraft, a rare move, done to avoid the risk of a commercial flight being diverted. Upon arrival, he was placed in solitary confinement at the Rivière des Prairies detention center. The killer had finally been caught, but justice was just getting started. After a massive international manhunt, Luka Magnotta was finally back in Canada, and in 2014 his trial began. He was charged with 5 serious offences, including first-degree murder, but pleaded not guilty. While he admitted to the killing, he claimed he wasn't in his right mind at the time. His defence team argued that he was mentally ill and couldn't be held fully responsible. The courtroom was packed. Quebec Superior Court Justice Guy Cournoy presided over the case, and a jury of 12 was selected, 8 women and 4 men. He admits to the acts, the judge told the jury. Your job is to decide whether he understood what he was doing when he committed them. Prosecutors believed he knew exactly what he was doing. 6 tools were recovered from outside his apartment: scissors, knives, a screwdriver, a saw, and a hammer. Forensic experts said they couldn't directly link them to the crime, but some injuries were consistent with cuts from a blade or saw. Magnotta's defense attorney claimed he was in a psychotic state during the killing. He introduced the idea of Manny, an abusive man from Magnotta's past, who allegedly pressured him to commit the murder, but prosecutors weren't buying it. They pointed out that the names Manny and Trammell came directly from Basic Instinct, a film Magnotta was fixated on. They even suggested he painted a black screwdriver silver to mimic the movie's ice pick. Despite all this, Magnotta chose not to testify in his own defense. The trial lasted 10 weeks. On December 15, 2014, the jury went into deliberation. 8 days later, they returned with a unanimous verdict: guilty on all charges. Luka Magnotta was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. He also received 19 years for other charges, served concurrently. He tried to appeal the decision, claiming the verdict was unreasonable and that the jury instructions were flawed. Less than 2 months later, he quietly dropped the appeal. Throughout the trial, mental health played a major role. Psychiatrists from both sides gave conflicting diagnoses. Some said he showed signs of schizophrenia. Others believed he had borderline personality disorder with histrionic or narcissistic traits. The prosecution argued that he had been pretending to be schizophrenic for years, pointing to interviews, reports, and past behavior that suggested he was fully aware of what he was doing. The final conclusion? Magnotta may have struggled with personality disorders, but the court found that he knew right from wrong, and that was enough. As the trial ended, other investigations were launched. US authorities briefly looked into whether Magnotta had any connection to the Hollywood sign murder in Los Angeles, but found no evidence linking him to it. He was also looked at in connection to the Toronto serial homicides, but that lead was dropped as well. News of Jun Lin's murder shocked not just Canada, but the world. In China, the crime received massive media coverage. Many questioned whether the attack was racially motivated, and concerns grew over the safety of international students studying abroad. This was the second high-profile murder of a Chinese student in Canada in just over a year. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister reached out to the Chinese ambassador to express condolences. Prime Minister Stephen Harper publicly praised law enforcement for tracking down Magnotta so quickly. And opposition leaders urged the public not to glorify the killer, but instead to honor the victim. 2 days after Magnotta's arrest, Jun Lin's family arrived in Montreal. They had lost their son in the most unimaginable way, but found support from students and strangers alike. Concordia University's Chinese Students and Scholars Association created a fund to help cover the family's expenses, and later an academic award was established in Jun Lin's name. A candlelight vigil was held in his honor. Hundreds gathered to mourn him. But even in the aftermath, controversy remained. Despite the brutality of his crime, Luka Magnotta was named Canadian Newsmaker of the Year by the Canadian Press in 2012, sparking backlash from those who felt his notoriety was being treated like fame. Jun Lin's body was cremated on July 11, 2012. His ashes were laid to rest in Montreal at Notre-Dame-des-Neiges Cemetery. Justice also came for the online side of the case. In 2013, the owner of the website that hosted the graphic murder video was charged with corrupting public morals, a rare charge in Canada. He later pleaded guilty and received a conditional sentence, serving part of it under house arrest. Jun Lin was a kind, hard-working man who came to Canada chasing opportunity and peace. He didn't deserve what happened to him. No one does. We tell these stories not to glorify the killer, but to remember the lives that were stolen, and to remind ourselves that real people are at the center of these cases. So, to Jun Lin, may your memory live on through the people who loved you, and may you rest in peace. This case also reminds us of the dark side of the internet. of what can happen when obsession, cruelty, and a hunger for attention go unchecked. Be safe, online and off. And if you ever feel like something isn't right, say something, because silence helps no one. Thank you for watching this week's episode. I appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to check out these videos. If you've liked, subscribed, or shared the channel, it truly means a lot. I'll be dropping exclusive videos soon through my upcoming Patreon, so if you want early access or behind-the-scenes content, keep an eye out for that. Until then, I'll keep studying these cases, putting in the work, and bringing you new episodes every week. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.